In many religious traditions, particularly in Christianity, angels are seen as celestial beings who serve as messengers or agents of God. The hierarchy of angels is most famously described by Christian theologians, with one of the most detailed accounts coming from Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, a Christian mystic in the 5th century. His classification, often referred to as the celestial hierarchy, divides angels into 3 spheres, each consisting of 3 orders or choirs. Here's the traditional angelic hierarchy. First sphere, closest to God, Seraphim, known as the burning ones. Seraphim are the closest to God and are in constant worship of Him. Their primary role is to circle God's throne and continually praise His holiness. They are described as having 6 wings, 2 covering their faces, 2 covering their feet, and 2 for flying. The most detailed description of the seraphim comes from Isaiah 6:1-7, where the prophet Isaiah has a vision of God in the heavenly temple. Isaiah 6:1-7. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory. At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and threshold shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. The distribution of their wings emphasizes different aspects of their service to God: humility covering the face, modesty or submission covering the feet, and readiness to serve flying with 2 wings. Fire symbolizes both God's purified holiness and His consuming judgment. The seraphim, as burning ones, represent beings who are aflame with love for God and radiate His purity and holiness. The seraphim are depicted as standing above God's throne, implying their close proximity to His divine presence. They constantly proclaim the holiness of God, singing the famous Trisagion, the thrice holy hymn. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, the whole earth is full of His glory. The repetition of holy 3 times emphasizes God's absolute and perfect holiness, reflecting His eternal nature. This hymn is echoed later in Revelation 48, further showing the connection between seraphim and divine worship. In Isaiah 6:5-7, one of the seraphim plays a direct role in Isaiah's purification. Isaiah 6:5-7. Woe to me, I cried, I am ruined. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken, with tongs from the altar. With it he touched my mouth, and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Here, the seraph uses a burning coal from the heavenly altar to purify Isaiah's lips, cleansing him of sin so that he may become a worthy prophet. This act illustrates their role in both judgment and purification. The seraphim are remarkable as the heavenly beings who uphold and declare God's holiness, and their vision in Isaiah offers profound insights into both the nature of God and the role of His angelic servants. The cherubim are the second highest order of angels and are traditionally associated with the protection of God's divine glory. They guard sacred things like the entrance to Eden after the fall of Adam and Eve. Often depicted as multi-faced beings, cherubim are powerful, wise, and full of knowledge. They are commonly portrayed with 4 faces and 4 wings. One of the first mentions of cherubim occurs after the fall of Adam and Eve, when God places them to guard the way to the tree of life. Genesis 3:24. After He drove the man out, He placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. The cherubim are depicted as divine guardians, stationed to protect the Garden of Eden and prevent humanity from re-entering after the fall. Their role as protectors signifies God's desire to keep the sacred and holy separate from the fallen state of humanity. The flaming sword reinforces this imagery of divine protection and judgment. Cherubim are closely associated with the Ark of the Covenant, which was the most sacred object in Israelite worship, representing God's presence with His people. On the cover of the Ark, known as the mercy seat, 2 golden cherubim are crafted to symbolize God's throne. Exodus 25:1-8-2. And make 2 cherubim, out of hammered gold. At the ends of the cover, make 1 cherub on one end, and the second cherub on the other. Make the cherubim of one piece, with the cover, at the two ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other. Looking toward the cover, place the cover on top of the ark, and put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law that I will give you. There, above the cover between the two cherubim that are over the ark of the covenant law, I will meet with you, and give you all my commands for the Israelites. The cherubim on the ark are guardians of God's holy presence. Their wings are stretched upward, symbolizing their protection and reverence for the sacred space. The mercy seat between the cherubim is considered the place where God's presence would manifest and where he would speak to Moses. The cherubim here represent the throne of God, who is often said to be enthroned between the cherubim. Cherubim in the vision of Ezekiel. Ezekiel's vision of the cherubim is one of the most detailed and mysterious depictions of these angelic beings in the Bible. The cherubim in Ezekiel's visions appear as four living creatures who bear the throne of God. Ezekiel 1-5:10. And in the fire was what looked like four living creatures. In appearance their form was human, but each of them had four faces and four wings. Their legs were straight. Their feet were like those of a calf, and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings on their four sides, they had human hands. All four of them had faces and wings, and the wings of one touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of the four had the face of a human being, and on the right side, each had the face of a lion, and on the left the face of an ox. Each also had the face of an eagle. The cherubim here serve as the bearers of God's throne and his glory. They move wherever God's presence moves, showing their role as divine attendants. The four faces human, lion, ox, eagle are often interpreted as symbols of different aspects of creation, the human representing intelligence, the lion representing wild animals and strength, the ox representing domestic animals and service, and the eagle representing birds and swiftness. Cherubim in Solomon's Temple. When King Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem, he adorned it with images of cherubim. Two enormous cherubim made of olive wood and overlaid with gold were placed in the Holy of Holies. Kings 6:23-28. In the inner sanctuary, he made a pair of cherubim of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. One wing of the first cherub was 5 cubits long, and the other wing 5 cubits, 10 cubits from wingtip to wingtip. The second cherub also measured 10 cubits. The two cherubim were identical in size and shape. The height of each cherub was 10 cubits. He placed the cherubim inside the innermost room of the temple. With their wings spread out, the wing of one cherub touched one wall, while the wing of the other touched the other wall, and their wings touched each other in the middle of the room. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. These two cherubim stood in the innermost part of the temple, the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. They symbolically protected the most sacred space in the temple, where God's presence would dwell. The cherubim's large wings, covering the room, show their role as protectors of the divine presence, much like the cherubim on the ark. Cherubim protect what is holy and carry out God's judgment, such as guarding the entrance to Eden and being involved in visions of God's glory and movement. The cherubim represent some of the most powerful and awe-inspiring beings in biblical literature, symbolizing the majesty, holiness, and presence of God. Thrones. The thrones are a lesser-known, but important order of angels within the biblical and theological traditions, particularly in Christian angelology. While they are not described in great detail in the Bible, they are referenced in several key passages that suggest their role in mediating God's divine justice and authority. In the celestial hierarchy proposed by early Christian thinkers such as Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, the thrones are placed within the first sphere of angels, closest to God's presence, along with the Seraphim and Cherubim. Their primary role is often understood as the bearers of God's divine justice and as symbols of divine judgment, authority, and balance. The clearest biblical reference to the thrones comes from Paul's letter to the Colossians. In this passage, Paul speaks about the supremacy of Christ over all creation, including various orders of heavenly beings. Colossians 1:16. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones, or powers, or rulers, or authorities. All things have been created through him, and for him. Here, the thrones are listed alongside other spiritual entities, like powers, rulers, and authorities, implying that they are a distinct class of angels or spiritual beings. This verse emphasizes that these angelic beings, including the thrones, were created by Christ and exist to serve his divine purposes. The term thrones can be interpreted literally as seats of authority and governance. In the context of angelology, it suggests that these angels are connected to divine judgment and governance, mediating God's rule over the cosmos. While the thrones are not explicitly named in Ezekiel's visions, many theologians and scholars have associated the wheels that accompany the cherubim in Ezekiel's vision with the thrones. In this vision, Ezekiel describes angelic beings that support and move God's divine chariot, surrounded by wheels covered in eyes. Ezekiel 1:15-21. As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel, on the ground beside each creature with its four faces. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like topaz, and all four looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they would go in any one of the four directions the creatures faced. The wheels did not change direction. As the creatures went, their rims were high and awesome, and all four rims were full of eyes all around. The wheels in Ezekiel's vision are covered in eyes, symbolizing omniscience and the ability to see all things, which relates to divine wisdom and judgment. The movement of the wheels without turning signifies perfect control and submission to the divine will. Theologians have interpreted these wheels as representations of the thrones, who bear God's divine chariot and execute his justice. They are seen as moving in harmony with the cherubim and supporting the glory of God. Pseudo-Dionysius, in his work The Celestial Hierarchy, explicitly connects the thrones with the imagery of wheels described by Ezekiel. He sees the thrones as instruments of God's divine will and as channels of God's righteous judgment. The book of Revelation provides vivid descriptions of God's throne room in heaven. While the thrones are not named directly, the scene of God's heavenly throne is central to the imagery. Revelation 4:2-6. At once I was in the Spirit, and there, before me was a throne, in heaven, with someone sitting on it, and the one who sat there had the appearance of jasper and ruby. A rainbow that shone like an emerald encircled the throne, surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and seated on them were 24 elders. They were dressed in white, and had crowns of gold on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning, rumblings, and peals of thunder. In front of the throne, 7 lamps were blazing. These are the 7 spirits of God. Also in front of the throne, there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. The throne of God described in Revelation is surrounded by powerful beings, often interpreted as representations of various angelic orders. The 24 elders seated on thrones around God's throne may symbolize heavenly authorities and could be a reflection of the throne's angelic order. Their role in governing and participating in heavenly worship echoes the authority and governance attributed to the thrones. Thrones in the vision of the Ancient of Days. In Daniel's prophetic vision, the term thrones is used in a way that has been interpreted to reflect angelic beings, particularly those who sit in judgment. Daniel 7-9. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. In this apocalyptic vision, thrones are set up around God, who is called the Ancient of Days, symbolizing his eternal nature. Some interpretations suggest that these thrones could be the throne's angels, who are closely connected with divine justice. They may serve as the heavenly court that assists God in executing judgment. The fiery wheels beneath God's throne could also link back to the imagery of Ezekiel's wheels, reinforcing the association between thrones and divine judgment. While the Bible does not provide many explicit details about the thrones, The passages that mention or allude to them, combined with theological reflection, suggest that they play a crucial role in upholding divine justice and bearing God's authority in the heavenly realms. Second sphere, governors of the cosmos and spiritual realms. Dominions. Dominions, also called dominations, are one of the higher orders of angels in the biblical and theological tradition, specifically within Christian angelology. They belong to the second sphere of angels, according to the hierarchy developed by theologians such as Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite. The dominions are considered to be regulators of angelic duties, overseeing lower orders of angels and ensuring that God's divine commands are carried out across the heavenly realms and within the universe. While the Bible itself does not provide extensive details about the dominions, there are a few key passages and theological interpretations that give insight into their role, nature, and significance in the heavenly hierarchy. The clearest biblical reference to the dominions occurs in the same verse that mentions other celestial beings, such as thrones and powers. Colossians 1:16. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones, or powers, or rulers, or authorities. All things have been created through him, and for him. The term rulers or authorities in this verse is often translated as dominions from the Greek word kurios, meaning lordships or dominions. This passage emphasizes that all angelic orders, including the dominions, were created by and for Christ, and they exist to serve his divine purpose. Here, dominions are described as part of the hierarchy of spiritual beings that assist in the governance of creation. They are seen as angelic rulers who hold a specific position of authority in the celestial realms. Ephesians 1:21. Christ is seated, far above all rule, and authority, power and dominion, and every name that is invoked, not only in the present age, but also in the one to come. The term dominion, Greek kurios, here is often understood as a reference to the dominions in the angelic hierarchy. This verse emphasizes that Christ is exalted above all spiritual powers, including the dominions. While the dominions possess authority and power, their role is subject to Christ's supreme rule. Their responsibility is to ensure that divine order and governance flow in accordance with God's will, but they are under Christ's dominion. 1 Peter 3:22. Christ has gone into heaven, and is at God's right hand, with angels, authorities, and powers, in submission to him. This passage, like the others, speaks about Christ's authority over all heavenly beings. Authorities in this verse is often understood to include the dominions, among other celestial beings. The passage highlights the hierarchy within the angelic realm and emphasizes the dominion's subservience to Christ. The dominions are depicted here as angels of authority, who, along with other angelic powers, are subject to Christ's rule. Dominions are responsible for overseeing the duties and functions of the lower orders of angels such as powers, virtues, archangels, and angels. They transmit God's will and commands to the lower angelic orders and ensure that everything in the cosmos is carried out according to the divine plan. As their name implies, dominions have a regal or ruling authority in the celestial hierarchy. They act as administrators of the universe, ensuring that God's government over creation is maintained. The dominions are often depicted in Christian art and literature as holding a scepter or orb, symbolizing their role as rulers and administrators of the divine will. These symbols represent authority and governance. The scepter is a traditional symbol of authority, suggesting that the dominions exercise divine rule over the celestial and earthly realms. The orb can represent the universe, signifying that the dominions are entrusted with the governance of the cosmos under God's direction. Balance and justice. Dominions are sometimes associated with the scales of justice, symbolizing their role in ensuring that divine justice is perfectly executed in all realms of creation. As regulators of angelic duties, they maintain the balance between mercy and justice, ensuring that God's plans are fulfilled in accordance with his righteous laws. Conclusion. The dominions occupy an essential role within the celestial hierarchy, standing as angelic rulers who oversee and regulate the functioning of the universe under God's will. While not described in great detail in the Bible, passages like Colossians 1:16 and Ephesians 1:21 give insight into their authority and position. Later theological reflections provide further understanding of their responsibilities, depicting them as angels of justice, order, and divine governance, ensuring that the cosmos operates according to the will of God. Virtues. The virtues are a rank of angels in Christian angelology, specifically within the second sphere of angels. They are considered to be responsible for manifesting divine power and overseeing the natural world, ensuring that the physical universe remains in harmony with God's will. While the Bible does not directly elaborate on the virtues in a detailed manner, there are a few passages that allude to their function and role, especially in the context of divine power, authority, and the miracles that occur within creation. Much of the understanding of the virtues comes from later theological writings and angelological systems, such as the works of Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite and medieval scholars like Thomas Aquinas. They viewed the virtues as part of the second sphere of angels, overseeing the laws of nature and assisting in the execution of miracles. Role and function of virtues in angelology. Overseers of the natural world. The virtues are considered guardians of nature and governors of the physical universe. They are responsible for ensuring that the natural world, including the elements earth, air, fire, water, the movement of planets, and the laws of physics, remains in harmony with God's design. Their influence is seen in the maintenance of cosmic order. They ensure that the heavens and the earth operate according to divine law and purpose, preventing chaos from entering into creation. Agents of miracles. The virtues are often associated with the execution of miracles, especially those that involve the natural world. When God performs miraculous events such as stopping the sun, parting the Red Sea, or healing the sick, the virtues are believed to play a role in these acts by overseeing the transformation of the natural order in accordance with God's will. They are thought to be the instruments through which God's supernatural power flows, allowing miraculous occurrences to manifest in the physical world while still preserving cosmic balance. Strength and courage. In the theological tradition, the virtues are also associated with the concept of divine strength and courage. They provide strength not only to the lower ranks of angels but also to humans who are called to act in accordance with God's will. The virtues help maintain spiritual strength in those who are faithful, enabling them to overcome obstacles and remain steadfast in their mission. In this sense, they serve as a source of divine power and inspiration for those carrying out God's work on earth. Channels of divine grace. The virtues act as channels of divine grace, ensuring that God's power flows from the heavens to the earth. This grace manifests not only in miracles but also in the regular order of nature, where the virtues maintain harmony between the spiritual and physical realms. They help bridge the gap between God's transcendent power and the material world, making divine energy accessible to the lower angels, humans, and the created order. Conclusion. The virtues are an essential part of the angelic hierarchy, responsible for maintaining the natural order and manifesting divine power in the world. While their biblical references are more indirect, Christian tradition has expanded their role as guardians of the cosmos and agents of miracles, ensuring that God's will is executed. Powers or authorities are one of the angelic orders in Christian angelology, specifically placed within the second sphere of angels. Their primary roles include maintaining cosmic order, defending the world from evil spirits, and overseeing the duties of the lower angelic orders. Like many of the angelic ranks, powers are mentioned indirectly in the Bible, though not in great detail. The understanding of their nature and responsibilities has been developed through biblical allusions, theological tradition, and writings by early church fathers and medieval scholars like Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite and Thomas Aquinas. The Bible includes several key passages that mention the powers, sometimes translated as authorities or dominions, offering insight into their roles in the celestial hierarchy. The exact word used to describe these angelic beings in Greek is exousia, which can mean authorities or powers. Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. In this passage, Paul speaks about the spiritual struggle against the forces of evil, including those in positions of power. The term powers here refers to both good and fallen angelic beings, including those that have rebelled against God, In Christian tradition, some of the powers are believed to have fallen during Satan's rebellion. This verse highlights the spiritual warfare that occurs between the forces of good angels loyal to God and the forces of evil. The powers are understood as both those who fight to maintain God's order and those who, having fallen, contribute to the spiritual battle against humanity. 1 Peter 3:22 Christ has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand, with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him. In this passage, Peter speaks about the exaltation of Christ above all spiritual beings. This verse reaffirms the hierarchy of angelic powers, showing that even the highest-ranking angels, including the powers, are subordinate to Christ. The powers are presented as part of the celestial authorities that are subject to Christ's dominion, reinforcing the theme that all spiritual beings, regardless of their might or function, operate under the rule of Christ. Romans 8:38 For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation, will be able to separate us from the love of God, that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Paul provides assurance to believers that nothing can separate them from God's love, including spiritual beings like the powers. The mention of powers here can be understood as a reference to both angelic beings and possibly the forces of evil. Even the powers, with all their authority and influence, are incapable of severing the bond between believers and God's love. This passage suggests that powers both good and fallen exist, but they are ultimately powerless against the redemptive love of God. Role and functions of powers in angelology. 1. Guardians of cosmic order. The powers are seen as maintainers of cosmic and celestial order, ensuring that the universe operates according to the laws set by God. This includes both the physical world and the spiritual realm, where they help maintain the harmony between the heavenly bodies and the natural laws. Their role in regulating cosmic balance includes overseeing the natural and spiritual forces that affect creation. They ensure that God's will is carried out in the universe and protect creation from being thrown into chaos by demonic influences. 2. Defenders against evil. One of the key roles of the powers is their defense against the forces of darkness. They are tasked with fighting evil spirits and preventing these malevolent forces from interfering with humanity and the divine plan. The powers act as spiritual warriors, standing between the forces of good and evil. They help protect the world and the human soul from the influences of fallen angels, demons, and other malevolent entities that seek to disrupt the divine order. 3. Governors of lower angels. As part of the second sphere of angels, the powers also oversee the lower orders of angels, such as archangels and angels, who are more directly involved in human affairs. The powers help guide these lower angels in their missions and ensure that their tasks are aligned with God's will. In this sense, the powers serve as intermediaries between the higher celestial beings' thrones, cherubim, seraphim, and the lower angels, facilitating communication and carrying out divine commands. 4. Channels of divine authority. The powers are often associated with the manifestation of divine authority. They help direct and enforce God's will, ensuring that divine laws are upheld both in heaven and on earth. As beings tasked with enforcing God's will, they are seen as angels of authority, carrying out God's justice and intervening in the spiritual realm when necessary to maintain order. Symbolism and depictions of powers. In Christian art and literature, the powers are often depicted with symbols of authority and protection, reflecting their role as defenders of the cosmic order and spiritual warriors against evil. 1. Armored warriors. The powers are sometimes depicted as armored angels, symbolizing their role as defenders against evil forces. They may carry swords, shields, or other weapons, representing their strength in battle against demons and other malevolent beings. 2. Symbols of authority. The powers may be depicted with scepters or other symbols of rule, indicating their position as enforcers of divine authority and protectors of order. Their authority extends over the natural and spiritual realms, and they are seen as governors, who ensure that everything operates according to God's plan. 3. Light and strength. In some depictions, powers are surrounded by light or radiance, reflecting their connection to divine power and their role in dispelling darkness. This light symbolizes their ability to overcome evil and maintain the order of the universe. Conclusion: the powers are thus essential beings in Christian theology, acting as warriors of light and governors of divine authority, ensuring the cosmos remains aligned with God's will while defending against the forces of darkness. Third sphere: protectors and messengers to humanity. Principalities. Principalities or princedoms are a group of angels in the Christian angelic hierarchy, primarily associated with overseeing nations, guiding leaders, and influencing human affairs. They belong to the third sphere of angels according to traditional Christian angelology, making them part of the lower orders that work more directly with humanity. The principalities are often mentioned in relation to their authority and governance, though their direct appearances in the Bible are limited and largely inferred through references to spiritual rulers and cosmic hierarchies. While the term principalities from the Greek word archai does not provide a complete picture of these angels' functions, several biblical passages reference the concept of spiritual principalities and powers, helping to outline their role in divine governance. Here are key passages that mention or imply the work of these angelic beings. In the book of Daniel, we find a narrative that gives a glimpse into the role of principalities in influencing human leaders and nations. Daniel 10:13. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Daniel 10:20-21. So he said, "Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return, to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them, except Michael, your prince." This passage is one of the clearest biblical examples of the influence that spiritual beings, including principalities, can have over earthly kingdoms and leaders. The Prince of Persia and Prince of Greece are traditionally understood as spiritual principalities or powers overseeing these respective nations. The text illustrates a cosmic struggle between angelic beings, some faithful to God, like Michael the Archangel, and others opposing his plans. The mention of national princes implies that principalities are assigned to guide or influence particular regions or political entities. Role and functions of principalities in angelology. According to Christian tradition and angelology, principalities play a key role in guiding human events, particularly in matters of leadership, governance, and national identity. They operate within the lower sphere of angels, interacting closely with humanity. 1. Guardians of nations and peoples. Principalities are thought to be assigned to specific nations, cities, or groups of people, overseeing the welfare and moral direction of these territories. They are believed to guide rulers and influence policies to ensure that God's will is carried out within human society. In this role, they might inspire leaders, protect nations, or steer communities toward harmony and alignment with divine values. In times of danger or moral crises, principalities may intervene to safeguard the moral order of a society. 2. Spiritual guides for leaders. The principalities are associated with the role of mentorship and guidance for leaders. They may be tasked with offering wisdom, encouraging justice, and helping leaders act in ways that reflect God's purposes. While principalities do not typically interact directly with individuals, their influence on leaders affects the course of entire nations and communities. 3. Protectors in spiritual warfare. The principalities are also warriors in the spiritual realm. They work to defend nations and people from the influence of evil spiritual forces that seek to corrupt and dominate. In Ephesians 6:12, principalities are identified as part of the spiritual hierarchy that can be either faithful to God or, in some cases, opposed to Him. Fallen principalities, sometimes described as powers of darkness, work to deceive and disrupt, suggesting a divided allegiance among these beings. 4. Mediators between heaven and earth. As angels within the lower hierarchy, principalities serve as intermediaries between the heavenly orders and humanity. They translate divine will into action on earth, implementing God's justice and mercy in ways that align with the social and political structure of human life. They help bridge the gap between the divine realm and human society, ensuring that God's intentions are carried out in the realms of government, law, and order. Symbolism and depictions of principalities. In Christian art and literature, the principalities are often symbolized in ways that reflect their authority over earthly realms and their guiding influence over human leaders. 1. Crowns and scepters. Principalities are often depicted wearing crowns or holding scepters, symbolizing their authority over nations and their role as spiritual overseers of leaders and governments. These symbols highlight their role in guiding human affairs and maintaining divine order within political and social structures. 2. Guardians of the gates or borders. Some artwork shows principalities as protectors at the gates or borders of nations, emphasizing their role in protecting specific territories or regions. They are sometimes depicted with shields, reflecting their duty to defend the moral and spiritual welfare of the people under their care. 3. Light and justice. In some depictions, principalities are surrounded by radiant light or are depicted as beings of justice and strength, showing their role in promoting truth, justice, and divine order in human affairs. Conclusion. Through these roles and depictions, the principalities serve as key figures in maintaining divine influence in human governance and guiding nations to fulfill God's purposes. Their authority, while substantial, is always subordinate to God, emphasizing their loyalty and service in upholding divine order on earth. Archangels. Archangels are prominent figures within Christian angelology, recognized as high-ranking angels who serve God by carrying out important messages, guiding humanity, and waging spiritual warfare. The Bible explicitly names only one archangel, Michael, while Gabriel is often considered an archangel based on his significant role as a divine messenger. Unlike other angelic orders, archangels are directly involved with humanity and play an essential part in conveying God's commands and leading in spiritual battles. The Bible provides limited but significant references to archangels, particularly in relation to Michael. Here are key passages that mention archangels or allude to their roles. 1 Thessalonians 4:16. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. This verse speaks about the archangel announcing the return of Christ, signifying the archangel's role in divine events that impact humanity, especially the resurrection of the dead. The mention of the voice of the archangel underscores the authority and power given to this angelic figure to herald such a significant moment in Christian eschatology. In Jude, we find a specific reference to Michael the archangel. Jude 1-9. But even the archangel Michael, when he was disputing with the devil about the body of Moses, did not himself dare to condemn him for slander, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." This verse describes Michael in his role as the archangel who disputes with Satan over Moses' body, reflecting his strength, righteousness, and authority, yet also his humility and submission to God's judgment. Michael's response, "The Lord rebuke you," illustrates the archangel's reliance on God's authority, underscoring a balance of power and humility in archangelic duty. In Revelation, Michael leads the angels in battle against Satan and his forces. Revelation 1-7-9. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Michael is depicted as a warrior archangel leading the charge against Satan and his followers in a cosmic battle. His victory in casting out Satan from heaven exemplifies his authority and combat skill. This passage emphasizes Michael's role as chief of the heavenly army, a figure who actively opposes and restrains evil, symbolizing God's protection over the heavens and earth. The book of Daniel features Michael in his protective role over Israel. Daniel 10:13. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Daniel 10:21. And there is no one who stands with me against them except Michael, your prince. Daniel 12:1. At that time Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress, such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Michael is called one of the chief princes and your prince, indicating his status as protector and guardian over Israel. The references to Michael's interventions highlight his strength in battle and his leadership in spiritual warfare. In Daniel 12:1, Michael's role is explicitly eschatological. He appears at the time of great distress to protect God's people and secure their deliverance, reinforcing his role as a guardian of the faithful. Gabriel's role as a messenger. While Gabriel is not explicitly called an archangel in the Bible, he plays a pivotal role as God's messenger into major events. 1. Daniel 8:16-17 and Daniel 9:21-22. Gabriel appears to Daniel to explain visions regarding Israel's future and the coming of the Messiah. 2. Luke 1:19-26-38. Gabriel announces the birth of John the Baptist to Zechariah and the birth of Jesus to Mary. His message is a key moment in Christian history, showing his role as a high-ranking messenger. Gabriel's appearances convey a sense of urgency and importance, implying a high rank. Though not explicitly labeled an archangel, Gabriel's prominent role in delivering divine messages to humans has led many Christian traditions to regard him as an archangel. Raphael, archangel of health, who manifests through a green light. Known as a healer, Raphael helps with both physical and mental ailments. Archangel Ariel is the healing angel of nature and animals, associated with fairies and other nature spirits. This archangel's role is to help you better connect with all forms of nature, whether physical or metaphysical. Archangel Chamuel is the bringer of inner peace by helping you during troubling times. If your quest is for universal peace in relationships at home or work, ask for Archangel Chamuel to guide you. Archangel Barashiel, angel of blessings, associated with blessings and divine providence. Venerated in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Often depicted with roses or a basket of bread, symbolizing abundance and blessings. Archangel Remiel or Jeremiel, angel of hope, visions, and resurrection. Recognized in some Jewish and Christian mystical texts, notably in the Book of Enoch. Frequently depicted with scales or a book, signifying his role in guiding souls and offering hope. Some traditions, especially mystical and apocryphal texts like the Book of Enoch or the Kabbalah, include other angelic names associated with archangel-like roles, such as Sariel, angel of guidance, and Regal, angel of justice. These texts are influential in Jewish mysticism and Christian mysticism, but these angels are generally not part of mainstream Christian doctrine. Conclusion: in Christian theology, archangels are revered as powerful divine agents who carry out God's will through communication, protection, and spiritual warfare, working closely with humanity while remaining faithful servants of God. Angels. These are the lowest order of angels, and they serve as messengers to humans. They are the most involved with human affairs, acting as protectors and guides for individuals. They are usually depicted as humble and gentle, often taking the form of humans when appearing to people. Thanks for watching.